Hey Adam, what happened to the expected bounce back above the benchmark price after we dipped below it as you predicted 5 to 6 months ago? Well, my predictions were wrong. I'm not ashamed of that. Shit happens. I wasn't expecting the tariffs. I wasn't expecting the townhouse market to dip as much as it did, like I say in this comment. And I wasn't actually expecting the federal election to, one, go liberal, and two, actually shut down or slow down, the Calgary real estate market as much as it did. Personally, I noticed with my own clients that I had at the time that a lot of people were waiting to see what happened with the election. Then they were going to make their decision. Because it went one way and not the other, there are some people now that are concerned as to what's going to happen on a national level. So let's continue on and break down the single family homes in Calgary and figure out if they're going to dip down or if they're going to actually increase, okay? My name's Adam Fyfe, your Calgary realtor. Yes, sometimes I get predictions wrong. I look at these data points every single month and I share with you my honest thoughts. There are links in this description that have lots of different valuable insights in each of them. If you are looking for the PDF reports, go ahead and click the link. If you want to have a conversation, book a call. Let's talk about how this is going to affect your personal situation. If you want to know what your home is valued in today's market, there's an instant home evaluation tool, super slick tool for those of you who are curious as to what your home value is. Maybe you're looking to leverage it, refinance, sell, whatever, right? All the links are in the description. Very slick stuff. Let's dive in. Now, if you want to read what the Calgary Real Estate Board has written about single family homes specifically, skip to the next chapter. No worries. New listings in May rose to almost 2,500 units, with most of the gains driven by homes priced over $600,000. At the same time, sales activity has slowed across most property ranges, supporting a shift towards more balanced condition and relatively stable prices. However, districts that are facing more competition from new home product or are seeing a larger pullback in demand are starting to show signs of elevated supply. The Northeast District has seen the largest pullback in resale activity, combined with some of the highest gains in new listings. This has driven the sales to new listing ratio down to 41% and the months of supply at nearly 4 months in May. This has caused prices to ease in the Northeast, offsetting some of the gains reported in the city center, west, and northwest districts. Okay, so city as a whole, we're seeing a pretty flat line in price points, but there's a different story to tell in every quadrant of the city. That's why it's so important to watch these videos and break down all the numbers. So city as a whole, as you can see, over the last 3 months, we have stayed relatively flat in price, right? We've stayed fairly consistent. We've seen a slight increase in sales activity, but a pretty steep increase in inventory, now seeing around 3,000 single-family homes left over at the end of the month, right? We're still a very large city. We have almost 1.6, 1.7 million people. We've had a lot of people move here. So 3,000 homes at the end of the month is still very low. Okay. Yes, we've seen a big shift, a doubling of last year, 1,500 homes, now 3,000. Still relatively low compared to the size of the city. Okay. We are still seeing a flat line in price point, but there are some shifts. So how aggressive are they going to be? So let's look at the market in general. Okay. So here's the month of May this year and last year, and here's the year to date. Okay. We're not going to dive into this too much, but you can see that year to date for single family homes, we're down 12%. Right, we're down 9% in sales volume year to date. You can see new listings are up 21%. Inventory is up quite a bit. Months of supply year to date average is at 2.24, which is still a seller's market, way more balanced than what it was last year. Right, last year we're at 1 month of supply, super hot seller's market. Now we're starting to see that shift. Sales to new listing ratio average for the year to date is 55%. You can see the month of May was 52. Last year we're at 67 for that specific month. Sales to list price ratio, we're under 100%. We're down about 2% compared to last year, right? Again, looking at the month year to date, and this is the month, 98%. Days on market, it was average 28 days. And then we're not going to talk about these prices because we'll dive into those a little bit more in the future slides. So when we start to look at the sales, we are down considerably compared to what we've seen in the crazy years of 2021 and 2022. So 2021, 2022, benchmark price was around $550,000. It is $250,000 more than what it was back then. We had a really successful Alberta is Calling campaign. We had a lot of migrants come from Ontario, really pushing that market up. We had some pretty depressed years prior, so there's a lot of pent-up demand. It really took off, now starting to slow down. This looks like it's probably our new normal. 2023, 2024 were pretty hot years. 2025 is still up there. Don't get me wrong. We are like 500-600 sales lower than what we've seen last year, but we're still active, right? We're still active. We're still moving year to date. So when we start to look at the price points, you can see that there is that shift towards more balanced, or sorry, there's more higher end homes. Like again, look at the blue bar from 2022, right? That very aggressive year. You can see just how many single family home sales were in the 400s and 500s, okay? Look at them now. There is so few in the 400s and 500s. Now we're shifting into the 5, 6, 7s, 8s, and a million, right? We're starting to see millions actually increase ever so slightly as well. So when we start to look at the numbers, again, we're looking at year to date, just from this year and last year. This is the numerical breakdown. I'm not going to dive into it too much, but again, just talking about that shift, like you can see even the 2 million plus, just as an example, is seeing quite a big increase in Calgary, right? Just in the month of May alone, the 2 million, the ultra luxury real estate here in the city is seeing growth, right? Which is going to keep that number elevated in price, right? So when we start to look down, this is just for the month of May. This is a sales by property type. So it talks about property type. We're looking at the blue, right? Because we're only looking at detached in this video, and it breaks it down into quadrants. You can see that the south is the biggest quadrant in the entire city. So it's a little bit skewed that way. Southeast is still very active, as well as northwest as well. Okay. You can see the most amount of sales just in general, city center apartments. That's the most amount of units in the entire city, but we'll break this down a little bit more. So when we start to shift a little bit and we start to talk about the new listings and the inventory, yes, we've seen an increase from those ultra lows that we saw in 2023, 2024, and then obviously the pandemic year, right? Pandemic year, we're just going to ignore, and you can see that we are starting to see an increase, a welcoming increase to say the least. But let's just take a time to consider that we're at the 10-year average. 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19 were depressed years in Calgary. The oil sands were in a recession. Alberta was in a recession, and we were not doing that great. Federal policies did not help, and you can see that we're at that 10-year average. We're not shooting up through these high new listings quite yet, with the delinquency rates increasing, with the uncertainty in the market, the renewals coming up. There's a lot of uncertainty going on, but at this time, right now, we're still at that year-to-date average, okay? That 10-year average. Let's really make sure to keep that in mind. We're going to keep a close eye on this because this was unrealistic. This was because of that, super affordable housing at that time. A lot of people came here, especially through the peaks of Toronto, the peaks of Vancouver. They look at Calgary, it was like $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 less. A lot of people moved here, okay? Now we're starting to see a shift there. So let's just take a look at, again, the total detached sales. And there's a couple things I want to point out here. So we're just looking at the month of May, and you can see days on market last year. Seller's market, 18 days. This year, 28 days on market for the average listing. It's going to take 28 days to basically sell your house, right? This is the average. You can see that our benchmark price tied with attributes is still up $8,000, give or take, compared to last month. Our our median price is the same as it was last year, but our average price is actually increased. Again, we kind of talk about those $2 million listings. That's obviously going to pull up that average price. This is why I don't really talk about average too much, because it does fluctuate based off of a lot of that, as well as a lot of the affordable properties in Calgary are disappearing. There's not a lot of $450,000, $550,000 single family homes. They're still out there, but they're just not as many as what they used to be. So the average is obviously going to increase. One of the things I want to point out to all of you naysayers out there right now that want the market to crash at this time, the last 3 months, we haven't seen much price movement. We've actually seen a very stable market. We've gone through tariffs, we've gone through an election, and single family homes at this time have stayed relatively flat, okay? We've seen the median price basically unadjusted. We've seen the average price basically unadjusted, and we've gone through a lot of the quote unquote uncertainty. Ontario's getting hit pretty hard with the tariffs. Alberta's going to see a little bit of policy changes with this federal government. Is it going to be beneficial? Is it going to be negative? We don't know. But we've kind of gone through that first stage of what's going to happen, that shock of the Conservative government not winning, which people were anticipating, at least here in Alberta. So we'll watch to see how these prices actually come about and go throughout 2025. So let's not just look at news reports, right, and looking at some numbers that people nitpick. Let's actually break this down and put it in perspective, because at this time right now we're seeing stability in the single family market. So months of supply, okay? We're only looking at the detached, okay? So want to point out every single quadrant is different, right? You can't just look at the total number and think, oh, that's what it's like everywhere. No, like we read in the description, Northeast is at 4 months of supply. Northwest is at 1.7, 1.8 months of supply. Very different market. If you're looking at a single family home in the Northwest, it's going to be very different than what you look at the Northeast. The benchmark price in the Northwest is going to be higher than it is in the Northeast. It's a little bit more sought after. We can see that the majority, or not the majority, but you know, a good amount of homes are still at 2 months of supply, which is still a seller's market. We are in balanced conditions. We have slowed down going up to a balanced market, but it's still a seller's market, right? So if you are in the market in these areas and you're a buyer, you want to make sure that you're doing your research because things still go pending relatively quick, within a week or two, right? If you're a seller, you might be able to push a little bit harder for your price point that you want compared to places like North and Northeast, just as an example, okay? So just keep that in mind when you're going to the market. Now, clearly, we can see the trend line coming up, but like I mentioned in my total residential video, we've been fairly stable. The single family market in Calgary has been fairly stable compared to what other people are screaming from the rooftops. Everything's slowing down, everything's crashing, everything's burning. We're going to see 10% decreases. I don't see that yet. I don't see that yet at all. I see a slowing down. I see a consistent growth in this months of supply as we go into more balanced conditions, but Calgary is still sought after. I don't understand what people don't get about that, is Calgary is still a place that people want to live. Yes, our prices have increased dramatically compared to what we've seen in past years, but it's still a beautiful place to live. There's still a lot of great things happening here. The employment rate has increased dramatically, so it's making it a little bit harder for people to come here comfortably trying to find work, but there's still people that want to move here or who have moved here, they're renting and still looking to get into the single family market, okay? So let's just put this all in perspective. So when we start to look at year-over-year price growth, we're only looking at the detached market again. Again, you can see that West Calgary is the outlier right now, still seeing year-over-year growth of around 3.7, 3.8% compared to last year. Where again, you look at Northeast, which has 4 months of supply, has seen a 2.5% decline compared to last year. Where you're still seeing growth in City Center, Northwest, and South, right? But your North, your Southeast is basically flat, and your East are seeing some declines compared to last year. So how does this affect you, right? There is an instant home evaluation tool. It's super slick. You can scan this QR code. It'll take you to the page, or you can click the instant home evaluation tool in the links of this video, and it's going to spit out an instant home evaluation tool, or a value for you. You're looking to refinance, you're looking to understand how much equity you have. Doesn't matter, right? I'm not expecting everyone to sell. I actually love to have conversations with people about their situation. There's a lot of people that looking at that equity to rent or to renovate. They're looking at just pulling out to pay off debt, whatever that is. That's fine. I'm here to help you. I can get you connected with professionals and just have a general conversation. There's no pressure here. I'm more than happy to have a conversation, talk to you about whatever it is that you want, and just shoot the shit, right? Let's just have that conversation. So let's look at the breakdown for individual quadrants in the city. So I will zoom in here, and people have probably already looked on the right, and that's okay. I brought this up in the total residential video. Very first time in Calgary's history, we're seeing a benchmark price for a quadrant above $1 million. Okay, that's huge news. Like, that's massive news in my opinion. The quadrant of West Calgary is now benchmarked above $1 million. There should be news articles about that and journalists bringing up this information because that's kind of big news, right? You're probably going to see City Center hit that as well at some point. Calgary is increasing in price, okay? We're not seeing a complete slowdown yet. If we have bad policies put in place, if this tariffs really screw us over, yeah, of course, we're going to see some sort of declines here. The Canadian market can crash, right? But at this time, I don't see it, right? Our provincial government, as controversial as they are, they've done okay with doing some things and trying to build optimism and doing a lot of stuff to try to bring investment to Alberta. So I'm still optimistic. You know, don't hang me, don't shoot me, but I'm still optimistic about the Alberta market, okay? So when we start to break this down, one of the more important numbers to look at is, the sales and listing ratio. You can see that Northeast and North, these two here, are at 40%, right? Everything else is hovering around that 50 to 60%. You can see that South is still at 64% sales to new listing ratio. They had 265 sales and 432 new listings, so quite a few new listings, but it was absorbed quite nicely, right? 61% of that was absorbed. And you can see that months of supply, again, Northwest and South are still under 2 months. Seller's market in those areas. benchmark price, year-over-year growth, month-over-month growth, talking about the actual number valuations for each individual, right? You can see that city center had 3,900 and a 6,200 increase last month. You can see that north, right? We'll start at northeast. 10,000 and 4,100, right? They saw double loss. 2,500, 9,200 in north, right? You start to look at northwest, 1,800. West, which is definitely the outlier here, $21,000 increase, right? There was a couple huge sales in West Calgary, probably in that 2 million plus, that they spent, above and beyond, right? They wanted the home, they paid the money, and that brought them right back up. That number can fall so quickly as well, right? If we see some sort of slowdown in the market or anything like that, that number can drop really quickly. It'll be fascinating to see how long this $1 million benchmark price stays. It's June 2025. I look forward to looking back on this and having that conversation. Still have some affordable properties here in East as well, right? But they're starting to see some declines, right? Which is good for people, I guess. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to buy, right? You're starting to see a slowdown in East Calgary, which is the most affordable, less sought after area, but definitely a good step into the right direction if you're looking at getting into the real estate market. So if you are looking at getting into the market, where I'm going with this, it is so important to not just watch a YouTube video, not just read a free PDF report, not just look at some news articles, but dive into the data, right? Book the call, have a conversation, and let's look at what's happening in the city. I found that this was fascinating. So when I just did a search of single family homes in Calgary over the last 30 days, I go to the results, I have it categorized or sorted by the close date, so it's sold. So you can see today, June 4th, there was 4 sales already this morning, so they switch it over to sold on the MLS. And if we just look at these prices, right? 1.2, 1.2, 1.5, 1.2, 1.2, 1, 1.1, 9. Like, I'm just looking at single family homes and I'm sorting it throughout the entire thing. And you can see that there are some pretty intense, pretty high end homes still selling in this market, still indicating that the higher end buyer is still confident in Calgary, so much so that they're willing to buy those properties, right? So you break it down, you look through here, you could still see, sales to list price ratios, right? We can go and we can sort it by that. We can go up here, we can see there's still people spending 16% higher, right? You still got some 9s, you go all the way down. If we scroll, let's just jump over to the 3 here, see if we can get it. You still got lots of 1s, 0.99s, go here. I want to see what the lowest one is now that we're on this. See if I can jump right to it here. There's probably some pretty good sales happening in there. So I kind of screwed that up a little bit. Oh, it's probably 7 at the ending here. So the lowest, right? So 1.5 down to 1.1. You can see again in some of these areas here, 399 down to 348. It was on the market for quite a while. Wow, 4 days on the market, must have been an unconditional offer, 399, they got 350, right? So yeah, there's still some movement in both directions. You can see again, just these $1 million properties. Like, we're looking at the last 30 days. You can see just how much of a discount some people are getting. So go in there, go in with strategy, make sure that you're doing your due diligence and find the right fit for you. So we are on a fairly consistent trajectory downwards. So this red bar is the year-over-year benchmark price. We could absolutely get into the negatives, and it's probably going to happen. This is fairly consistent. We can probably dip down here. Like my predictions in the previous videos, I don't think we're going to stay there very long. I don't think it's going to be a consistent downward trend and we're going to drop 10% like some people say, right? We're going to fall, we're going to crash, we're going to burn, Canadian economy is going to blow up. Who knows, right? But I don't think Calgary's going to see that crazy of a decline personally, right? Yeah, we could see some dips, but we need to look at the entire market. We need to break it down into segments and figure out how that's going to affect you personally. So we are still on the up and up, right? Looking at just 2020 by itself, $500,000 for a single family home. Now we're at like 750 plus, right? So we are still in that territory where it's a lot higher than what it was 4 or 5 years ago. So are we going to dip down to like 600, 650? I just don't see it yet, right? If we start to see more and more and more and more negative reports in Alberta, then of course I'm going to change my tune. Right now we're seeing a lot of cries from the Canadian economy. Same thing with the Alberta real estate, Calgary real estate. You can't just look at the Canadian economy picture and put Calgary in that situation. You got to look at Alberta. You got to look at Calgary. You got to, of course, look at Canada and figure out how the Ontario market doing and how BC market's doing and all that stuff is very important. But we need to break it down a little bit more. And I'm still optimistic with Calgary. I'm sorry, but it is what it is, man. Prove me wrong, right? If you have and you want to comment your thoughts and stuff like that, share with me articles. Share with me stuff. I'm more than happy to have conversations with people. I love replying to these comments of people who are waiting for the crash and they want 10 or 15% drops. Sure. Show me the information that you see and articulate yourself, and let's have a conversation, and I'll bring that up in these videos, right? I'll bring that up for you and we can have a conversation and I can comment and share my thoughts, and I can share with you the articles that I read. And I can show you exactly what I see. And I can talk to you about that. So thank you very much. That's my rant for the day. If you have any questions, comment below. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.